Welcome, everyone, to Community Church Unitarian Universalist. I am your worship associate for this morning, and it is a joy to be with everyone and those of you joining us online as well this morning. So who are we as a community church? We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. And I encourage you to look at our weekly newsletter and calendar for continued activities that are occurring. And those of you, our members here in the church, are just a reminder, we have our annual congregational meeting. We're going to have a 10-minute or so coffee break so that people can get water and take a break as you need. And then we're going to gather back 10 minutes after our service for our annual meeting. So, and it is a joy to have Heather Vickery with us, who will be giving us our sermon. Heather Vickery is the coordinator for congregational activism with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. And a blessing to be able to hear her message this morning with us. And our land acknowledgement, which I will read. We acknowledge and pay tribute to the original inhabitants of this land. The city of New Orleans is a continuation of an indigenous trade hub on the Mississippi River, known for thousands of years as Balbonsha. Tribes that have lived on this land include the Caddo, the Natchez, the Choctaw, the Chitimacha, the Huma, the Tunica, the Biloxi, the Atacama, Ishak, among others. We recognize that as a result of broken treaties and involuntary removals, Native Americans were often forced from their lands. We remember and pay respect to the communities impacted by these actions. Native peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial, and the resilient voices of Native Americans remain an inseparable part of our local culture here in New Orleans. With gratitude and honor, we acknowledge the indigenous nations that have lived and continue to thrive here. And now we will light our chalice. The music that we sing is by Bert Brunson.
So I offer these opening words called "A Call to Worship and Action" by Sharon Wiley. It is said that ministers are here to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. I say we are all afflicted and we are all comfortable. May our time together this morning be a comfort and a confrontation. May we find peace in times of tumult. May we here invite tumult into lives of peace. May we here find calm in times of restlessness. May we here allow restlessness to evolve into action. Let this be the place you consider what you've never considered. Let this be the place you imagine for yourself something new and unthinkable. May this hour bring dreams of new ways of being in the world. Come. Let us worship together.
Now we have Cynthia for our time for all ages.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to share with you a little book that I found. It's called Bindu's Bindies. Every month, Bindu's nanny sent her a new set of bindis from India. Bindu adored her bindis. She wore them at temple, she wore them on holidays, and she wore them at home. Packets upon packet, shape after shape, the choices were endless. Lightning bolts were perfect for a brave day. Ovals were just a thing for a proud performance. And squiggly lines practically shouted, "I'm unique." One month, Nanny brought the bindis in person. Bindu was so excited, she wore a brilliant oval bindi. She couldn't wait to see what Nani had on. But on the way back from the airport, Bindu suddenly wasn't feeling excited anymore. She wanted to slip her bindi off. She wanted to go home. She encountered people with signs that said, "Go home." Bindi watched Nani drum her fingers. She looked even more worried than Bindu. So Bindu squeezed her hand. Then the murmurs outside got louder. Bindu talked over them, so neither she nor Nani could hear them. And when Bindu and Nani felt the stairs, Bindu held her hand up high, and Nani did the same. After all, they love to match. That evening, Nani drank chai and told stories of dancing in the rain back home for all the world to see. She even showed Bindi some new moves. Every day after school, Bindi would come home and pick out a bindi to match Nani. A flower on the forehead was just right for silly giggles. Diamonds twinkled with the adventurous wink, and circles did the trick for a festive feeling. Soon the time came for Bindi to wear her lightning bolt, Bindu to wear her lightning bolt bindi to school. They were going to perform an Indian dance at school. It was Bindu's first time wearing one there, so Nani made sure she matched her. And when it was Bindu's turn on stage, she suddenly wasn't feeling very brave. All the children were laughing. She wanted to slip her bindi off, and she wanted to go home. "Do you want to wear your circles?" "No," Bindi replied. "How about ovals?" Bindi shook her head. "Squiggly lines?" asked Nani. "I'm sick of feeling unique," said Bindu, refusing to move as the music started. Bindu looked nervous, but Nani, she squeezed her hand and got up on stage. Nani began to twirl. Some people stared. Nani almost stopped, but Bindu held her head up high, and soon Nani did the same. Nani shook her hips, and some people murmured, so Bindi cheered over them, swaying along the music in her seat. And soon everyone began to cheer. Bindu neared the stage. She watched as the lights made Nani's bindi sparkle until she couldn't tell what shape it was, or wasn't. Bindu couldn't let Nana do their new old moves alone. After all, they loved to match. So Bindu bravely got up on stage with Nani, twirled with Nani, shook her hips with Nani, because Bindu adored her bindis. She wore them to temple, on holidays, and at home. She wore them for dancing with her Nani for all the world to see. The end. Can y'all sing out the children for me to Ari? Thank you.
Now is our sacred time for our joys and sorrows. If you are online, you are welcome to write your joy or sorrow in the comment section, and we can read that out loud after our next hymn. If you are in person, there are cards being sent around at this moment, and you can fill those out if you would like. If you were not able to fill out one earlier, you can do that during our next music interlude. And the choir and Nicholas will now lead us in hymn number 296, O ye who taste that love is sweet, and you can remain seated. Sorrows this morning from Sean. Sean says, had a big article accepted for publication in the peer-reviewed journal Studia Phenomen Oligica. I'm sorry, I butchered that. Sorry. Okay. This one is from Michelle Firestone. Hoping for our legislators to be strong this week and to strike down the don't say gay and permitless concealed carry bills. Our beloved Esther is lucid but lonely. She'd like visitors. And I have that address, so come see me and maybe we can do a group visit as well. Kathy, this is a joy. My sister has beaten a very serious gallbladder cancer. This is from Jim O'Neill. A sorrow that our state legislature has restricted the rights of our LGBTQ community. And a joy to welcome Donna, a visitor from Summit, New Jersey. So welcome, Donna. So we will light 2 more candles. One for the joy still bubbling up and too new to share, and one for the sorrows that we cannot yet put words to. Know that we love you and hold you in our hearts. And now we have our invitation to the offering. And for this week, we share, as we do every week, 50% of our plate. And which your generosity helps to do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online, if you're online, at CCUUNOLA.org, and by texting 504-370-2659, as well as giving here in person. We'll be passing the plate along. For this Sunday, 50% of our plate is going to be going towards a trans-supported fund that the UUSC and the Malden congregation supports and advocates. And we'll be hearing more from Heather on why this is so important at this moment in our history here in the States and Louisiana. So the choir will lead us in hymn number 172, Sip Amandla. So, one thing that we don't have on our agenda this morning, and a joy, is we have a new member, Jerry Driscoll, and we're going to do a member ceremony right now to welcome him into our congregation as a member today. And so that's definitely a joy to be able to do that. So we have some words that go part of that ceremony, but first just inviting Jerry up here if you'd like to share a few words about your...
I'm Jerry Driscoll, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I know I feel welcomed by all you members. I like the sermons that Reverend Stacy gives and the other guest visitors, and the opportunity to talk to people afterwards at the coffee hour. So thank you for making me feel welcome.
So I'm going to read some words, and then you will respond. We will. And then there's another prompt a little later that I'll give also some guidance on. So again, we welcome Jerry, and who has chosen to make a commitment to this congregation by signing our membership book later today. We are glad to have you here with us, and we are happy that you have chosen this community of fellow seekers to travel with you on your life journey. Will you accept our gift of fellowship, discovery, and service? And will you offer us your unique presence and gifts? And will you add your name to the long history of Unitarian Universalist people who spread hope with our living faith? Wonderful. And will you engage us as we seek to create a community and a world dedicated to love and justice? Great. And now, members, I will read. Then you will say, we will after this. Congregation, will you welcome Jerry as a new member with the warmth and comfort of your fellowship? Will you seek to add your strengths and talents to the new gifts that Jerry brings us? And will you share our triumphs and our struggles as our community grows and changes? We will. So let us together be together in covenant with the promise that we make to ourselves and to each other, which holds our community together with common purpose and common love in the midst of our diversity of belief. And then repeat after me. Love is the doctrine of this church.
Love is the doctrine of this church.
And service is our prayer.
And service is our prayer.
This is our great covenant.
This is our great covenant.
To dwell together in peace.
To dwell together in peace.
To seek truth in love.
To seek truth in love.
And to help one another.
And to help one another.
Thank you. Now we welcome Jerry to sign our membership book at the end of this service. And if you feel comfortable, we would like each of you, which actually Jerry did, he just introduced himself. And then at the end of this service, if you haven't had a chance to sign the membership book, everyone is welcome to do so here today in our congregational meeting. So welcome, Jerry. We're so happy to have you. And now Heather will lead us in the rest of our service.
Thank you. So this first reading is an excerpt from Emergent Strategy, on Interdependence, which was written by Naima Penniman. When Hurricane Katrina slammed into the Gulf Coast, almost everything lost its footing. Houses were detached from their foundations, trees and shrubbery were uprooted, signposts and vehicles floated down the rivers that became of the streets. But amidst the whipping winds and surging waters, the oak tree held its ground. How? Instead of digging its roots deep and solitary into the earth, the oak tree grows its roots wide and interlocks with other oak trees in the surrounding area. And you can't bring down 100 oak trees bound beneath the soil. How do we survive the unnatural disasters of climate change, environmental injustice, over-policing, mass imprisonment, militarization, economic inequality, corporate globalization, and displacement? We must connect in the underground, my people. In this way, we shall survive. And now we can rise in body or spirit for hymn 155, Circle Round for Freedom. Second reading is I Want to Be with People by Dana E. Orsnop. Often people say that they love coming to a place with so many like-minded people. I know just what they're getting at, and I know that they aren't quite getting it right. I don't want to be with a bunch of people who think just like me. I want to be in a beloved community where I don't have to think like everyone else to be loved, to be eligible for salvation. I want to be with people who value compassion, justice, love, and truth, though they have different thoughts and opinions about all sorts of things. I want to be with independent-minded people of good heart. I want to be with people who have many names and no name at all for God. I want to be with people who see me in my goodness and dignity, who also see my failings and foibles and still love me. I want to be with people who feel their interconnection with all existence and let it guide their footfalls upon the earth. I want to be with people who see life as a paradox and don't always rush to resolve it. I want to be with people who are willing to walk the tightrope that is life and who will hold my hand as I walk mine. I want to be with people who let church call them into a different way of being in the world. I want to be with people who support, encourage, and even challenge each other to higher and more ethical living. I want to be with people who inspire one another to follow the call of the Spirit. I want to be with people who covenant to be honest, engaged, and kind, who strive to keep their promises and hold me to the promises I make. I want to be with people who give of themselves, who share their hearts and minds and gifts. I want to be with people who know that human community is often warm and generous, sometimes challenging, and almost always a grand adventure. In short, I want to be with people like you. Good morning, friends. I am so grateful to be here with you all this morning, both in person and online. Thank you for all the ways that you are living our Unitarian Universalist values in the world. The world needs those values now, maybe more than ever. For so many of us, these last few years seemed to be an endless litany of one crisis after another. Climate-forced displacement, armed violence, assaults on human rights, a deadly global pandemic, anti-trans bills, and on and on. As we continue to grapple with these events, we must remember that going back to business as usual is not an option. Not if we seek to live up to the values we espouse and create a world with more justice, a world in which everyone's needs are met, a world that we call beloved community. This is a world built on love, a liberatory love, the kind of love that allows us to stay in the struggle until everyone is welcome, everyone is whole, everyone is free. This is what we're being called to now, in so many ways. Co-creating a beloved community that looks to partners, not saviors, that looks to justice, not the status quo, a community that reaches towards life, not harmful ideology. Dr. Cornell West reminds us that justice is what love looks like in public, and justice is central to the beloved community we are trying to create. Justice is conceived of, in much of American society, is often thought of as something separate from us, an impartial system perhaps, or an objective ideal that somehow resides outside of human bonds. In reality, though, relationship is at the core of justice. Justice is co-created between people and between communities. Author Rachel Naomi Remen describes justice work as being in service of wholeness. You all here at Community UU of New Orleans have been in service of wholeness by being a sanctuary church, by supporting asylum seekers like Rosa, by sharing your resources through your plate donations, as well as all the other justice work that you participate in. By taking that leap of faith and recognizing the humanity of strangers impacted by systems of oppression, you have started to create the beloved community right here amongst you. And you aren't just making this city more welcoming and beloved for asylum seekers, trans folk, people of color. You're making this city more beloved for you all as well. This idea is found in the words of Australian Indigenous activist Lila Watson when she says, "If you have come here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you've come here because your liberation is bound up with mine, then let us work together." The Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, or UUSC, because SUUs like to have our acronyms, is also a part of this work. One that has shifted our work from charity to justice, from depending on a few key leaders to centering grassroots partnerships and leaderful movements. Founded in 1940 in response to the rise of fascism in Europe, UUSC began as a mission by a Unitarian minister and his wife, Waitzel and Martha Sharp, who traveled to Prague in order to do what they could to get as many Jews and political dissidents being targeted by the Nazis to safety. As the years went on, the Unitarian Service Committee, which would later become the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee, expanded its global work, sending aid to places around the world facing humanitarian crises. And over time, our human rights work began to focus more on systemic justice issues, shifting to a model of partnership with grassroots organizations led by those most affected by injustice. Today, our work focuses on climate force displacement, crisis response, and migrant justice. And while these initiatives might seem unrelated at first glance, they are, at their core, all interconnected. These issues are about the right to security within our homes, the right to restore our homes when we are ravaged by natural or human-made disaster, and the right to seek new homes when necessary. It's this last right, the human right to migrate, the right to seek asylum, the right to relocate, that inspired the UUSC program called the Congregational Accompaniment Project for Asylum Seekers, that not only matches congregations with asylum seekers who need sponsors, but also supports those groups like those in your congregation doing the critical work of welcoming asylum seekers and refugees. It also has inspired our emerging work to support our trans and gender diverse beloveds as they move from unsafe states that have criminalized their very being to safer states in the US itself. These collaborative accompaniment programs are profound ways to journey with and shelter people who are fleeing oppressive systems. Anti-immigration and transphobic rhetoric, the near complete dismantling of the US asylum process, and bills criminalizing gender-affirming care have been escalating in recent years, but it is no way a new phenomenon. A new federal administration doesn't automatically mean things that will improve. Sometimes they'll get a lot worse. We see this with the current administration's proposed transit ban that brings back one of Trump's most harmful policies. We see it in the new rules that have restricted asylum now that Title 42 has been repealed. We see it in the intense rise of anti-trans policies and the fear and uncertainty we all have for what could happen in the next 2 years. Within this context of rampant injustice in our country, many people, both within and beyond migrant and LGBTQ communities, have looked for new ways to change those systems. All over the country, neighbors and friends have created accompaniment networks, joining people in immigration hearings, legal and medical appointments, check-ins with ICE. They're housing our trans beloveds and supporting their relocation. They offer emotional care and comfort in times of stress and fear. Provide a ride, or translation services, or advocacy. They meet folks in transition with supplies for their journey and help them find secure housing and work. Basic needs. In all forms, accompaniment is an invitation to witness, to listen, and to show up. It is a practice of being human together in the face of extremely dehumanizing systems and circumstances. For those of us who are not directly targeted by these systems of oppression, accompaniment brings us closer to the violence of our immigration and criminal punishment systems, creating opportunities to build relationships with those who are most impacted. And as a result, many people who engage in accompaniment become deeply transformed and grow more committed to disrupting these harmful systems and acting for a more liberated future for all. Being in solidarity with and sharing resources with a stranger in need is a tangible way to say yes to justice, yes to community, yes to that which affirms life. This is one of the countless ways we become the beloved community, even as we seek to create it. And we each have a role to play in its creation, each of us bringing our broken, growing selves in service to wholeness, recognizing that your liberation is bound up in mine, that no one is free until everyone is free. Beloved community is leaderful, joy-filled, imperfect, challenging, and flexible. It's life reaching towards life. But before we can build the beloved community, we have to be able to imagine it. Adrienne Marie Brown reminds us that if we are not organized towards what we really want and what we long for, we will always settle for just reacting and trying to stop something bad from happening. And I think most of us can resonate with that feeling of always needing to react against something harmful. It's really easy to look at something like our current immigration system and all the terrifying transphobic laws that are coming up and say, that is wrong. That is bad. And I bet you also can understand how frustrating and demoralizing that can be, because there are so many wrong and bad oppressive systems that it can feel overwhelming and like the world is unchangeable. If we want to do our justice work more effectively and faithfully, we have to have a vision of the world we want, not just the world we don't want. That is what I want to do with you today. To start imagining what the beloved community actually looks and feels like for each of you and for this congregation. So I'm going to invite you into a brief visioning practice. So I ask you to settle your body into a comfortable position. Maybe that means grounding your feet to the floor like the roots of a great oak tree. Maybe that means relaxing your head and letting your chin dip down so your head is closer to your heart. Maybe that means leaning your head back as if your head really is in the clouds. Maybe it's something completely different. That's okay. If you're comfortable doing so, close your eyes or soften your gaze. And take a deep breath in. And as you release the breath, notice your muscles. Are they clenched from worry? Notice your skin. Is it a little sunburned like mine? Take another deep breath in. And as you release the breath, try to release the worry, the tension. Keep breathing. Now, in this more relaxed state, imagine that we have made it. We are in the beloved community where there is no war and no poverty, no borders and no prisons. Bring yourself into that future time when we've arrived and we are together. Notice your senses. Different ones may be activated for each of us. What do you see in your mind's eye? What might you hear? Maybe there's a smell or a taste. What can you feel? Who's there with you? What are we doing together? Take a deep breath in as you continue to notice, and slowly breathe out. And as we gently come back to the present, take a moment to notice how your time in the beloved community made you feel. Did something stick with you, particularly a sound, an image? Be gentle with yourself as you return. My colleague and friend Angela Kelly taught me that practice And it's had a profound impact on not just my mental health and my ability to stay in this work for the long haul, but also on how I do the work right now. I'm sure you know as well as I do that it's a lot easier being the person you want to be in the world when you're filled up with peace and possibility rather than frustration and fear. And you see, when I imagine the beloved community, what I experience is a true community meal. Food plays a large part in my life. I was telling some folks I was meeting earlier this week. I love to feed people. I love to try new foods, and I love to connect with people over meals. It's a general trait in my family. When we return from vacations, we often spend the first hour describing said vacation, just talking about the food we ate. Just really lucky for me coming back from New Orleans. As I'm brought back to that place, that meal, that community meal, I know that the food we are sharing tastes like the joy of knowing no one is hungry. That the laughter I hear sounds like true liberation, a type of laughter that can only be heard when no one is behind bars. And that the people I'm with feel like home because I know everyone else in the world has shelter. Just talking about it now fills me with a sense of peace. And I miss that world, even though I've never physically been there. So when I'm struggling with all the injustices in the world and feeling overwhelmed and like I have to respond to all of them, or feeling like nothing I do can ever make a real difference, I go back to that place. I let it wash over me, and I ask myself, what will get me closer to that world? How am I different when I'm in that place, and how can I start living that way in the here and now? What is my work to do? The work that combines my passions and my skills, that gets us closer to that beloved community. And by keeping that vision close at hand, I know that whatever direction I decide to go in, it will get me to the same place. And that all the trials and tribulations along the way will be worth it. So now I ask you, how will you get to your vision of the beloved community as individuals and as a congregation? I hope that practice sparked a little bit of imagination, that you'll continue doing it because it does get better and easier as you go. I hope you've learned something and that you'll continue to join us in building the beloved community. Whether it's through a community meal, supporting a stranger, singing beautifully together, or any of the other visions that you had during that practice. And thank you for joining today in this worship, and for all you do and for all you are. We at UUSC are very excited to see how we can practice living together in the world we long for right now. Amen, Ashe, and let it be so. Sorry, in my church we have a thing that we say we don't strive for perfection, we strive for authenticity and connection. So I'm authentically going to move into the chalice extinguishing. Does that sound right? And the benediction, great, okay. We extinguish this chalice here that might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. And I'll leave you with the benediction by Darcy Roque, Each of Us Ministers to a Weary World. There's too much hardship in this world to not find joy every day. There's too much injustice in this world to not right the balance every day. There is too much pain in this world to not heal every day. Each of us ministers to a weary world. Let us go forth now and do that which calls us to make this world more loving, more compassionate, and more filled with the grace of divine presence every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And we will now close out with our closing hymn. Our faith is but a single gem, number 193. Please rise as we're willing and able to join the choir. Now is our time to have a 10-minute coffee gathering, and then we'll come back here for a congregational meeting.
Huh? Well, it's got like a. I'm getting this.
The frequency.
Yeah. So I was going through and I was just see if I could fix it. I don't know.
I just want to just drop this off. Didn't
Okay.
get a chance to cut it out to size.
Oh, what is this? Is this the
Oh,
letters?
the letters for the 3 different ideas.
Oh man, we got a tape.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I didn't get a chance to do that.
Oh, we
but
can
I
do
figured-
that. That's cool. Thanks. Sure, no problem. Oh, and this is the
Yeah, so it's got 2 sets of. They didn't quite fit, but that would be the length at the 5-inch, and then this is the 2 or 4-inch.
Oh wow, is that 5 inches? Okay.
I thought I'd bring it by and.
Oh good.
Another
Okay,
time
and I'll make it into like colors, silver, whatever.
They could have fit this in 2 bars, and then nobody could get.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Just something fun.
Write down how many people we had. Do you know how many?
We had 6 people. All right. Choose output.
That one was picked by,
Output mode.
Why don't you do it? You're not talking to the person.